Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar co-hosted by New York Oracle Users Group and Oracle partner Viscosity North America. My name is Katie Barnes and I am an account manager here at Viscosity. We are a full Oracle stack consulting firm with a core expertise in Oracle database, including RAC, Apex, zero downtime migrations, performance tuning, and high availability. And we also have decades of experience with infrastructure, including engineered systems. During today's presentation, feel free to submit questions to our presenter in the questions and chat prompt seen on the lower right side of the GoToWebinar panel. Liron will do his best to answer questions as they come in during the presentation, but we will also save a few minutes at the end of the presentation in case there are any missed questions. And I will also be doing a follow-up with everyone that's in attendance today to provide a copy of the slide deck and a recording of today's presentation. So be on the lookout for an email from me later this afternoon. I also wanted to share with you guys, we have another webinar coming up on January 5th called Better Designed Than Sorry, which will also be presented by today's presenter, the wonderful Liron Amitzi. And in this webinar, he will be discussing schema design. So I will make sure to include a link to register for this webinar on the follow-up email that you'll be receiving later today. Representing NYOUG today is NYOUG President Coleman Leviter. Coleman is going to give us an introduction on New York Oracle User Group and will also introduce today's presenter. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and give it over to you, Coleman.
Thank you very much, and thank Viscosity for co-hosting with New York Oracle Users Group. New York Oracle Users Group was established in 1984 for the exchange of ideas, assistance, and support among users of Oracle products. You can connect with us using Twitter, Meetup, LinkedIn, Facebook, and of course our website, which lists all the webinars and links to a lot of other educational items at nyoug.org, and outreach to the membership in the Oracle community at the oracle.com community user groups. And again, thanks Viscosity and thank Liron for working with us today on this webinar. Liron is an Oracle ACE director and senior Oracle DBA consultant with more than 20 years experience. During these years, Liron worked as a senior consultant with a large number of companies in various fields and managed an Oracle professional services team. He mainly specializes in high availability solutions, performance, backup and recovery, and other infrastructure and application database areas. Liron is the president of the British Columbia Oracle Users Group, and he is a well-known instructor and lectures in Oracle courses, events, and forums. Thank you again, and welcome to the webinar today.
Thanks, Coleman. So let me share my screen. Okay, you should be able to see my presentation now. Just a second, I'll sort this out. Okay.
We can see it now, thank you.
Great, okay. The presentation mode, right? Okay. So, hi and welcome everyone, and thanks Coleman for having me. My name is Liron, and today we're going to talk about creating order in the database patching chaos. You have my contact information here, my Twitter account if you want to follow, my email if you want to be in touch. You can find me on LinkedIn as well if you're interested, and my website. I'm going to talk about that in a second. So before we start, a little bit about myself. So my name is Liron, and as you can hear, I'm not a native English speaker. I'm originally from this part of the world, Israel, this, I don't know, purplish area here in the Middle East. And just over 5 years ago, me and my family, wife and 2 kids, we moved all the way across the world to Vancouver in Canada. So this is where I live now, and this is where I am. Beautiful weather outside, a little bit closer to you in New York, but unfortunately I cannot be there in person as much as I would like to. Maybe next time. Okay, so actually next time is January 5th, another webinar. Maybe the time after that, I'll be really happy to come to New York. So a little bit more about me. I've been an Oracle DBA since Oracle 7 and 1998. Most of these years, I've been a senior database consultant. I have my own website, go to dba.com. You're more than welcome to go there and take a look and subscribe for updates if you'd like. I have a technical blog there. I have a blog that is mostly technical, not only, and I have some other information as well. I have a section about becoming a database consultant and becoming a speaker at conferences and stuff like that. Besides that, I'm very involved with the community. I'm an Oracle ACE director, and as Coleman said, we have an Oracle user group here called BCOUG here in Vancouver, and I'm currently the president of the group. So that's pretty much about me. And today we're going to talk about patching. But first, what I'm not going to talk about. Okay, so there are two things that I'm not going to talk about today. First one is upgrades. Okay, so upgrades and migrations. This means moving the database to different servers, different versions, like from 12 to 18 or to 19, or very shortly, hopefully in 21C. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about patching only. If you want to talk about upgrades and migrations, this is Mike. And if you know Mike Dietrich, he's the master product manager of Oracle upgrades and migration. He's from Germany. He's a great guy, and he has his blog, mydietrich.com. And this is a very useful resource with everything related to upgrade, migrations, problems after migrations and upgrades and stuff like that. He had some information about patches as well and other stuff. So that's a really great resource. And if you have any questions about upgrades or migration, he's your guy. So I'm not going to talk about that today. The other thing is OPatch. OPatch is the utility that you use in order to install the patches. It has all kinds of different options and flags and stuff like that, but most of it is just technical. Okay, so how to use the OPatch, you'll see in the documentation, you'll see in the patch README and stuff like that. So I'm not going to really talk about the utility itself. I'm going to talk about the concept of the patching and how to do that, but not the technicality and the syntax of how to use OPatch. Currently, the supported version, this is really recent. Okay, it has 21C here. So this is the supported version matrix, let's say, of Oracle database as of today, and it has 11.204 and 12.1, 12.2, and 18, 19, and 21C. As you can see, Oracle skipped 20C. Okay, so it was on the cloud for a little while as a demo, I think they called it, or preview version, but it was never released. And 21C is the actual release. And I'm not going to talk about all these different colors and what it means. I'll just mention two. The first one, the I don't know, greenish turquoise color, that's the first block in every version. This is the premier support. This means this version has support, has patches, has bug fixes, everything, and this is included in your license. The yellow and actually the red, oh no, sorry, the yellow, yeah, sorry, again. The yellow and the red are the extended support. Extended support means that you get exactly the same as the premier support, but you need to pay extra for that. Okay, so you can have bug fixes, you can have patches, you can have everything, but you have to pay for that. The yellow piece of the extended is actually, it's extended support, but we waive the support fee. So basically, it's for free, including in your license. The red area, you have to pay in order to get these patches and bug fixes and so on. Okay, I'm not going to talk about the rest, and I am going to talk about a little bit about the relevance of the patches in this extended period. Okay, and anyway, if you want some more information about that, you have my Oracle support note here at the bottom, 742060.1, and this note is getting updated all the time. So once they release the next version, this entire scheme, or they change dates of anything, it will get updated, so you can follow it there. Next, okay. Release families. So from Oracle 12.2, between 12.2 and 18, Oracle decided to change their numbering scheme and the release, the release, basically how they handle releases. Okay, before that we have 10.1 and 10 release 1, 10 release 2, 11 release 1, 11 release 2, 12 release 1, release 2, and then they changed it. So the new concept is that every year we get a new release, and the number of the release is based on the year, except obviously 2020 because it's a problematic year as it is. So every year we get a release, but still they have something called release families. Okay, so the concept of release families is that we first get 2 innovation releases in every family, and then the third release will be the long-term support release. Okay, so 12 to 18, 19 here on the left-hand side of the slide is a little bit strange because they decided on this scheme like in the middle after they released 12.2. But the first innovation release of 12.2 of this family release was 12.2. The second innovation release is 18C, and the long-term release is 19C. And the concept between the innovation releases and the long-term support release is the innovation releases, they get all kind of new features to play with and to install and use if you want to be with the latest and greatest. If you need to be more stable and have longer support for the version, you will have to wait for the long-term support release. Okay, so innovation releases will get 2 years of premier support, but no extended. Okay, and since from 21C, they shouldn't get RURs as well, released update revision, and we're going to talk about RURs soon. So they will have only RUs, which we are going to talk about soon. So 2 innovation releases with short premier support and no extended support means that if you want to be on a supported version and you install the innovation release, you will have to upgrade more often. Okay, the last release of the family, the long-term support release, will get 5 years of premier support and 3 years of extended support, and it will get RUs, release updates, and RURs. Okay, so if I go back to the previous slide, you see, let's ignore 12.2 for now, but let's see, 18C is an innovation release, so it has only 2 years of premier support and that's it, no extended. 19C is the long-term support, so it gets 5 years of a premier and then 3 years of extended. Now 21C, as you can see here, 21C is the first innovation release. They skipped 20C, and 22C will be the second innovation release. And if you want to wait for the long-term support release, you will have to wait for 2023 and 23C. Okay, and then upgrade to this version. Why should we patch? Why do we even need patching a system? So we have 3 main reasons for that. Security vulnerabilities. In every patch, and Oracle released the patches quarterly, the regular patches. In every patch, they have closed security vulnerabilities. Okay, so if you need to be, because of a regulation or because you just want to be responsible and you would like to be as secure as possible, you will have to install the patches and close these vulnerabilities or fix these vulnerabilities in your database version. Besides that, obviously bug fixes. With every release, Oracle fixes lots of bugs. Okay, they don't close all the bugs, they prioritize that, but the main bugs are getting fixed all the time. And the third reason is support. When you open an SR for Oracle and you have a problem, it's relatively common for the support engineer to say, oh, you know what, you're not in the latest patch, and maybe the developers touched something in the area of the bug that you facing, and maybe they fix that. Even sometimes, even if it's not in the bug fixes list in the MyOracle support, like the official list. So in many cases where they don't know what the bug is, or it's a strange behavior or something like that, they will tell you, oh, you know what, install the latest patch, see if this still happens, and then we can take this to development if it does. Okay, so these are the main reasons that we should be patching our systems. So when I talked about patching with all kinds of different colleagues and clients and stuff like that, basically patching is easy, right? We just download the patch and install it, and we have a few options. So we have RU, which is release update, and RUR, release update revision, and DB bundle patch, that's mainly for Windows, and OJVM patch, and DST patch, and one-off patch, and then we can patch a standby database, a complex environment, and rack. Okay, so maybe it's not that easy, right? We have tons of different patches. We have all kinds of different environments. How do we install it? What patch do I need, and how should I do this process? So first of all, you need to figure out which patch you need. Okay, so this is a list of the latest 19C patches, main patches, let's say, page, and this is on MyOracle support 756671.1, and this is also updating all the time, so you can follow this note specifically. And as you can see, this is the list of all patches. So we have got quite a few. We've got the combo OJVM with the DB, and then we've got OJVM combo with GI, and then we have GI, and then we have database, and then we have OJVM and Microsoft, and so on and so forth. So let's figure out what these patches are and how we actually approach the process of installing patches. So we'll start by talking about the patches themselves. So every quarter, January, April, July, and October, Oracle releases a quarterly patch. These patches are called release update RU or release update revision RUR. And every quarter we will have both RUs and RURs for every supported version. Okay, so if I go back to the slide, this slide, as you can see here, this is the RU release update, and these are the RURs. Okay, and we're going to talk about that in a second. So the RU, they are always rack rolling patches and standby first patches, always, and we're going to talk about that towards the end of the presentation. So the difference between RU and RURs, and that's a rough description or explanation. Release update is a set of patches that may include new features and some behavior changes. So if Oracle decides to change, I don't know, init Aura parameter default value, it will be introduced in the RU, okay, in the release update. And in order to figure out which patch is an RU, you will see the numbering scheme. In the numbering scheme, it's the second number. So if we talk about 18.12 or 19.9, these are the latest patches for 18C and 19C, you will see that the RU is the second number. Okay, so the next RU will be 18.13 and 19.10. Okay, the second number in the version. RUR, the release update revision, include only regression fixes and security fixes. Okay, so no new features, no behavior changes. It's a more stable patch, but it includes obviously less content. Okay, and the number of the RUR is the third number. Okay, so the latest RUR currently out for 18 and 19 is 18.10.2 and 19.8.1. Okay, so this is how we distinguish between them and what they include. And more information about RUs and RURs are in most notes. The number is here, 233-7415.1. Okay, so as I said, and this is, I don't think this is final. I heard about that. I didn't see an official note about that, and we don't have 21 release on premises yet. So, but this is how it should work. That RURs, the release update revision, will not be available for the innovation releases. So they won't have 21C and 22C won't have RURs, they will have only RUs. Okay. Now, RURs, the release update revision, is supported for 6 months only. So if we're talking about a new RUR each quarter, it means that for each RU, we've got 2 RURs and that's it. Okay. And one last thing, RURs includes all RU changes. Okay. So let's see, I know it's a bit confusing, so let's see how it works. In October 2019, release update 19.5 was released. Okay. And let's say I have a database 19C and I installed 19.5. I got all the new features, all the behavior changes. There are not a lot usually, but there might be some, and all the fixes that were included, including the security fixes and other fixes that were included in 19.5. Okay, so this is my version currently, 19.5. In January 2020, okay, 19.6 was released, and I decided for some reason not to install 19.6. I wanted the more stable option. I wanted as few changes as possible, but I did want the security fixes, okay, and the critical regression fixes. So in January 2020, I installed 19.5.1. So I'm completely up to date as of January 2020, but I don't have all the changes that were included in 19.6. Okay, I have all the changes from 19.5 plus regression and security fixes in January 2020. And then came April 2020. Okay, to April 2020, RU to 19.7 was released. With it, the support for the last 2 RUs. So in April 2020, I have 19.7, I have 19.6.1, and I have 19.5.2. So I wanted to keep the 19.5 track. So I installed 19.5.2. So I am again, I'm up to date with all the security and critical bug fixes, okay, as of April 2020, but I don't have any fixes that were not included in the patch, in the RUR, in the 19.5.2 RUR, and any behavior changes that were introduced in 19.6 or 19.7. And then came July 2020. In July 2020, there is no RUR for 19.5 anymore. There is no 19.5.3. It's not available anymore. As I said, RURs are supported for 6 months only, okay? So I had to move forward. In my case, in July 2020, I could have moved to 19.8 directly and get everything. I decided to go to 19.6.2. So that's fine. I'm up to date as of July 2020. I have all the information, all the bug fixes and security fixes and regression tests as of July, regression fixes as of July 2020. But the main thing to remember here is that at this point, I introduced every behavior change or new feature that 19.6 has. Okay, so basically at this point in July 2020, I installed 19.6.2 and I'm introducing all the 19.6 fixes and behavior changes and I don't know, default parameter changes and new features and everything that was included in 19.6, plus all the regression tests, all regression fixes and security fixes of July 2020. Okay, so I am up to date as of July 2020. Okay, and I see I have a question here, so let's see if I can answer that now. I'm on 19.5. If I want to get to 19.8.1, do I first do 19.8 and then apply 19.8.1? Oh, that's a good question. I usually don't install RURs. I don't think so. That's a great question, and I'll have to check that, because again, I've never done that. Instead of you, I would probably go for 19.9 and not 19.8.1. But if you, for some reason, want to go to 19.8.1, I would guess you can go directly to 19.8.1, but I will have to test that. Okay, great question. Thank you. Okay, so this is RU and RURs. Last thing about RU and RURs is known issues. Okay, so for some reason I checked that yesterday, and for some reason this note is not updated, but usually it is. Okay, so for 19.9 they made a mistake, and this note that is here is for some reason for July 2020 and not October 2020. But usually when you want to install an RU or RUR, this is the same note as I showed a few slides ago, and there is a note for known issues here. Okay, so you just click this note and you see all the known issues in this specific version. So if there are known problems with the installation or known bugs that are critical that Oracle recommend to install one-off patches right after this patch, they will mention that there. Okay, so before you install any RU or RUR, go to this note, click the known issues note, and hopefully they will somehow at some point will fix the note. But go to the note, and I hope 19.10 should be released next month, in about a month, mid-January. So I hope they will have the right known issues. Go there and check if there are any known issues or something that you need to do before or after installing this RU or RUR. Okay, so this is a very important piece. Okay, so we talked about RUs and RURs. Let's move on. Okay, so GI patch, okay, grid infrastructure. If you use ASM or RAC database, you need to install the grid infrastructure patch as well. And the grid infrastructure, or the GI, has RU and RUR as well as the database. Okay, so we have GI home, RU, RUR, and we have database home, RU and RUR. Okay, so as a general note, the GI, the grid infrastructure home, equals to the ASM because the ASM version runs from the same home, and they should be newer or equal to the database version. Okay, and if you want to see the full metrics, you can see that in note 337737.1. Know that when you install the GI patch, the RU or RUR, it contains the database patch as well. Sorry. Okay, we are going to talk about OJVM patch in a second. Know that the GI home doesn't need the OJVM patch. Okay, the database home needs. We'll talk about that in the next slide. Also, when you install the GI patch, if you look at the README, you will see that the default or the standard installation of the patch to the grid infrastructure home is using OPatch Auto using root user. Okay, if you do that, by default, unless you define it differently, and there are all kinds of flags that you can define manually what to patch and how to patch, but by default, if you follow the note, it will patch the grid infrastructure home and all the database homes of running databases. Okay, so this is very important to remember. If you have a home with a database and the database is down, the instance on this node is down for some reason, or I don't know, it will not patch this database home. Okay, so if the database, the instance is running on this server and you use auto patch auto with the default settings, the OPatch will patch the grid infrastructure home and the database home. But if the database, or if you have multiple database homes, it will not patch all of them. It will only patch the running databases ones. Okay, and also it will execute data patch for you. Okay, so the general process of installing a patch RUR into a database home is to install the patch, take everything down, install the patch, take everything up, and run a script called data patch. And everything is in the README of the patch, which you should read and follow. So OPatch Auto will install the patch on the GI home, on the database home of running databases, and then execute the data patch script for you as well. Okay. Also, I'm not going to talk about that too much, but also there's a new feature called zero downtime GI patching, and that's available from 19.8 onward. And this means that you can patch the grid infrastructure while the database is running. Okay, so it's also called out of place. We'll talk about out of place patching a little bit later. But this means that you install a new home and you patch it to the latest version, and then you run a command that basically switches and it changes the grid infrastructure from running from the old home to the new home, and it does that while the database is up and running. Okay, so the database, the instance is not going down on this node. And this is quite cool, and this is new from 19.8. And if you look for zero downtime GI patching or out of place GI patching, you'll find a lot of information about that. Okay, so that was GI. OJVM patch. So OJVM is Oracle Java Virtual Machine. Okay, this is relevant, as I said, only for database homes. And you need to install this patch. Oracle recommends to install this patch on all database homes. Okay, even if you don't have Java, even if you don't use Java in the database. And I'll explain in a second why. But it is needed mainly for security reasons and obviously bug fixes. It is needed for databases that run or use OJVM, the Java Virtual Machine, inside the database. So this means if you have Java code running inside the database. I'm not talking about external tools. I'm not talking about, DBCA or any other software. I'm talking about running Java code in the database itself. Okay, loading Java classes and stuff like that into the database and running that inside queries or PL SQL. So in these cases, this is needed. The OJVM patch is needed. Okay, and Oracle basically recommends to install that on every database home, just because they say if you in the future create a new database from the same home, and this new database will use Java, you want to be up to date. So, I can accept that, but if you know that you won't do that, or you don't use database, or you won't use database, or if you will use Java, if you will use Java in the database in the future, you will be responsible enough to install this patch. That's fine. Okay, usually in my environments where I don't have Java in the database, I don't install that. One thing to remember though, the OJVM is installed by default if you run like DBCA and create the database. Okay, so unless you unchecked the the OJVM in the database when you created the database, you have that. Okay, and you can check that when querying DBA registry, just to make sure. If you have Java in the database, it is recommended to install it, to install the patch. If you don't have Java, if it's not installed, doesn't matter if you use it or not. If it's not installed, you don't have to. But if it's installed, it is recommended. Okay, so installing the OJVM patch is a bit complex. It required startup upgrade before 18.4 with some exclusions. and it's a bit more tricky. So I attached a link and my Oracle support note here. The link is from Mike Dietrich, a blog post, to Mike's blog post about patching OJVM, and if you do or don't need to use the startup upgrade. And the My Oracle support note has some more information about this stuff. So it's if you do want or need to install the OJVM patch, I would really recommend going there and check it out and see how to install and what is your specific case. Hopefully that was the plan. So I don't know if Oracle 21 is only available on the cloud now, so patching and stuff is not really our responsibility. But when it will be released as an on-premises, maybe I'll check that out. That in 21C, the concept was to not require Java downtime. Okay, so the problem is that the Java virtual machine running in the database, there is only one Java virtual machine that is running, and then if you run Java code and during this time you patch this, it doesn't work together. It doesn't work, right? Because you patch, it disables the old Java virtual machine or Java environment in the database and then creates the new one with the new patch, and then Java code cannot run at the same time. Hopefully in 21C they fixed that, and the concept was to allow two Java virtual machines to run at the same time, the older and the newer, and then the transition could be happening online without any Java downtime. But until then, it does require Java downtime, not necessarily startup upgrade of the database, but it does require Java downtime. Okay, so check the note by Mike and the My Oracle support note if you need more information about that. Combo patches. Okay, so if you saw on the list of the patches, of the quarterly released patches, we have the GI, RU, RURs, we have the database RU, RURs, we have a Windows patch because that's a different mechanism, and then we have the combo patches. So the combo patches are for RU only, okay, the release updates. You don't have combo patches for the release update revision. And there are two different combos. One is database plus OJVM, and one is GI plus OJVM, okay? This is basically just for download convenience, okay? So if you download the database RU and the OJVM RU separately, that's perfectly fine. If you install the combo, it's basically the same, okay? It just, because OJVM is a common patch, Oracle decided to just provide a single download link, okay? But if you open the zip, you'll basically see two different patches, either the database and OJVM or the GI and the OJVM. So basically, it's exactly the same as downloading both patches separately, and you should install them separately. Okay, so you should install the GI first or the database first, depends what you downloaded, and after that, on top of that, the OJVM. So basically, if you need both, you can just download the combo instead of them separately. But as you'll see in the README, you actually need to go to the README of the database or the GI and install that, and then separately go to the README of the OJVM and install that. Okay, so the combo patches are convenience for convenience only. One-offs. So one-off patches are patches that fix a specific issue, specific bug or specific issue. Okay, and it's really, really, really important to check for conflicts. Okay, you might have conflicts between one-offs and between one-off and RU or RUR. So you need to check for conflicts in two different cases. Okay, one is before you install a one-off. Okay, if I have a system 19.6 and I want to install and I have a bug and I check my Oracle support, I talk to the support engineer, whatever, I realize that I need to install a one-off patch. So I need to check that this one-off patch that I need doesn't conflict with my current installation. It might conflict with my RUR or RU, depends what I've got. If I have 19.6, that's an RU. It might conflict with the RU. It might conflict with a different one-off patch that I have. If there is a conflict, I need to contact Oracle and ask for a specific patch for my environment that will not conflict. Okay. Another case when you need to check for conflicts is before you install RU or RUR. So for example, I have 19.6 with, I don't know, 2 one-offs because of bugs that I hit. Okay, and now I want to upgrade that to 19.9. I might have a conflict between the 19.9 and my 2 one-offs. Okay, so before I install the RU 19.9, I should go and check if 19.9 conflict with my one-offs. If it does, I will have to check and request, if not available, one-offs for 19.9, if obviously if they weren't fixed already in 19.9, these bugs. But if they weren't and I need these one-off patches, I will have to download or ask, if not available, and one-off patches for 19.9, okay? And then uninstall the one-off patches, install 19.9, and then reinstall the new one-offs. Okay, if there is no conflict, no problem. You just install 19.9. Okay, so again, check for conflicts if before you install any one-off that you need, or if you already have one-offs before you install any RU or RUR. Okay, and to check for conflicts, you can use the MyOracle Support OPatch Conflict Analyzer tool. It's available from the one-off patch itself. So you go to the one-off patch where you see the download link. There is a button called Analyze with OPatch. You click that one and you upload your OPatch LS inventory, and then Oracle will check that. It has some problems. This tool, sometimes it times out or all kinds of weird behavior, but at some point it works, and when it works, it will give you results if there is a conflict. If there is a conflict, if a new version that doesn't have conflicts, is it exist? If it exists, it will give you a link. If it doesn't exist, you can open an SR and request a new version of the one-off patch. Okay, so I have 3 questions here, so I'll answer them before we go on. I thought GI does not need the OJVM patch. No, it doesn't. Okay, I'm going back here. I guess the question was here because I have GI and OJVM patches here. So you thought that GI doesn't need the OJVM. That's correct, it doesn't. But if you have RAG database or a standalone database that has ASM, if you download the GI plus OJVM patch, combo patch, you will get the GI patch. The GI patch includes the database patch already. Okay, so you have the GI patch, which you will need to install on the GI home, and then the database patch, which includes in the GI to install on the database homes, and then the OJVM to install on the database homes. Okay, so if you have GI on the system and you download this patch, it has everything that you need. It has the GI, the database, and the OJVM. Okay, so again, convenience only. Next, OJVM is only for database home. Why GI plus OJVM? Same question I just answered. And any experience or recommendation on automating patching? I'm not sure what you mean by automating patching. So if you can clarify that, Kerry, please, I will answer that maybe at the end. Okay. Last type of patch is DST, time zone patch, okay, or daylight saving. And this patch is required to update the time zone definition on the database, in the database, okay. And DST patch requires startup upgrade, which is a bit tricky, okay. So if you have never needed to install DST patch, I have. That's because, you know, some countries in the world changed the daylight saving definition and decided to go to disable it completely, or they change the date that they're changing the daylight saving and stuff like that. So to be up to date, if you have multi-time zone database and you use timestamp with time zone in the database, you might need to have this patch. And this patch is separate from the regular patch. And this is mainly because, I think, because it requires startup upgrade. Okay, so when you install the DST patch, you will have to upgrade the database and run some scripts, and then restart the database in normal mode. So because it requires startup upgrade, it means downtime in RAC. It cannot be RAC rolling patch. In data guard environments, it requires longer downtime. And the standby needs to be mounted. We'll talk about that in a second when we'll talk about standby. Okay, not active standby. The standby database cannot be open and read only. And this is until 21C. In 21C, in the new features guide, I saw that they allow DST patching without the startup upgrade, which is awesome. And I hope maybe they will put the DST patch in the RU and RURs as well. I believe that it wasn't there until now, just because it required startup upgrade, which means it's not RAC rolling patch, and the RU and RURs have to be RU and RURs have to be RAC rolling patches. So you know, we couldn't have DST patch in the RU and RURs. And if you use multi-tenant, it's really important. Okay, you install DST on the CDB, and that doesn't affect the PDBs. And then you install in every single PDB. And if you installed it on one PDB, it doesn't affect the other PDBs. Okay, so in order to be up to date with the time zone definition, you will have to install that at the CDB level and then every single PDB separately. And also, you cannot install this patch on the PDB seed, which means if you create a new PDB from the PDB seed, it won't have the patch. So you will have to be responsible to install the patch every time you create a new PDB. Okay, so this is really important. Okay, I have a question here, so let's answer this quickly. We don't have a lot of time. Hi, in what cases we can use OPatch Auto? OPatch Auto is usually used with GI patches, and you know the syntax is in the README of the patch. So usually for regular database, you use just OPatch apply, and for GI environments that have grid infrastructure like a single server with ASM or RAC or any RAC 1 node or standard edition high availability or all of these, you use OPatch Auto, and again, it's in the README. So a little bit about complex environments. Let's start with standby. Standby first patches require shorter downtime. Okay, and RU and RURs are always standby first patches. Okay, there is a confusion with my Oracle support. So there are two notes that talk about how to install standby patch, how to install patches in standby. Please ignore the second one, the 278641.1. Just ignore that. This is incorrect. The correct one is the first one, the one with the V next to it. It's the 1265700.1, and this is how to install the standby first. If you have a patch that is not a standby first patch, and this is not RU or RURs or RUR, it's a one-off patch that in the README, every README of every patch will say if this is a RAC rolling patch or a standby first patch. And if you see that this is not standby first patch, this means that you need to patch both servers together. So you need to take down the primary and the standby, install the patch on both, and then start them both up after the patch. Okay, with the standby first, you can do it in a different way, and we'll see that in the next slide. Okay. Also, patches that require startup upgrade, as I said that in the DST patch, you cannot apply that to an active standby. Okay, so you will have to shut down the standby, start it in mount mode, okay, and then run or apply the redo that was done during the startup upgrade stage. And after this thing has been done, you can restart it and open the standby to read only again. Okay. So how do we do that? We have 19.5. The primary is on the left side, the secondary or the standby is on the right side. Both are 19.5, and we have the application goes to the primary. And this is the node that I mentioned before. So the first thing with the standby first patching, this means that we can install the new patch, in this case RU 19.6, on the secondary, and we restart the database, and that's fine. And the synchronization between the primary and the secondary continues, and everything works. Okay. After we do that, we'll just perform a switchover. So now the 19.6 is the primary. The application is working with it, okay, while the 19.5 is the secondary. And again, the database is keep being synchronized, and that's supported and that works, I think, up to like 30 days or something. I don't know, something like that. Okay, but you can work like that, and the app is up and running, the application. At that point, you patch the secondary. So now you have an environment which is 19.6. And as you remember, if you remember, I said that after RU or RUR, you need to run data patch script. So at this point, when both of them are patched, you install the data patch. You run the data patch script. Okay, and at this point, if you want to switch over back or not, that's your decision. But basically, the environment is patched. How do we do rack rolling patch? Okay. Again, 19.5, and I want to install 19.6. So I start with patching one node and I restart it. I restart not the node itself, I restart the grid infrastructure and the database, okay? And this patch, I mean, here I made it simple. So in this case, I patch the GI with the database home and everything together, okay? So I install one node, I restart it. So all the users can connect to node 2 and 3 and work on them. And then I do the same to node 2. Now, users that were disconnected from node 2 can work on node 1 and node 3. And now I install the same on node 3. Node 1 and node 2 are available, and then I run the data patch, okay? Only on one node. And that way, my application is always online, and this is zero downtime, okay? Every server was restarted, every instance was restarted, but other instances were still up and running. How about rack non-rolling patch? Okay, now I have one-off patch that is not rack rolling, so I cannot do that. I cannot have one node patched and one node not. So I will install the patch here and I leave the instance down. And then I install the patch on node 2 and I will leave the instance down. Until now, I didn't have downtime because node 3 is still available for users. But now I will have to take everything down. So this would be my downtime. But once node 3 is patched, I can restart everything. Okay, and now everything is available. So I did have a short downtime, but I did that as little as possible, as short as possible. Another option, and I have, I think, just a couple of slides more, and then I'll answer the question that I see here. So out of place patch. The concept of out of place patch is that I install a new home in a different place. Okay, so I create and patch a new Oracle home. I can use gold images for that. If you don't know what gold images, you can check that online. I have a blog post on that as well. And then I can have a new home. Let's say I have a database home 19.6. I install a new Oracle home 19.9. So far, I didn't interrupt with anything, right? I just installed a new home. Now I can just take my database, shut it down, and start it up from the 19.9 home and run data patch. And that's it. My database is upgraded. Okay, so this eliminates basically the patch installation time. It's a more complex process or procedure, but it does require less downtime because I'm not patching the database while I'm not patching the home while the database is down. I'm doing everything while the database is up and running from a different home. And then I just switch to the new home, run data patch, and I'm done. What happens if I share a home? I have two databases that share the same home. I have to patch them together at the same time, or use out of place and then just move one database at a time to the new home. I once had a case where I had standby databases and they were like crossed. So the node on the left had database 1 primary, node on the right had database 1 standby and database 2 primary, and then the node on the left had database 2 standby. So basically there is a problem here. I cannot install standby first because I need to install the standby first and then switch. It doesn't work. So in this case, either out of place and move the database to the new home, or perform a switch over and then follow the standby first. Patch the node on the right first and then the node on the left. Okay? So just to sum this up, and we are right on time, I think. Let's see about questions in a second. So first of all, you need to figure out which patches you need. RUR, do you need GI, do you need OJVM, do you need one-off patches, and so on and so forth. Okay, so make a list of all the patches that you need. Check if you have existing one-offs in your database. Okay, check if you need new ones. For example, if the existing one-offs conflict with the RU or RURs, you need a new version. Oh, actually, that's the next bullet, but still. And also check the known issues to see if this specific RU or RUR requires additional one-offs, and sometimes they do. And then check that all the one-offs that you need are indeed available, because I had a case where actually the known issues note mentioned in one-off patches that is recommended for this RU, but this one-off wasn't available. Okay, so you have to open an SR and request the specific version for this one-off patch. So once you have all the patches that you need to install, you know all of them are available, then you prepare a procedure on how to do that. Do you have standby? Do you use standby first? Do you have a rack? How do you install all the patches, and so on? Once you have the procedure, test it in a test environment, and once everything works and you have a working procedure, you can go on and deploy that in production. And that's it. So thank you very much. Again, I'll leave this slide here so you'll have my information, and at this time I'll also answer a few questions. We have time, right? I think we have a few minutes until they stop me. So let's see. Okay. Do you recommend cloning Oracle Home before applying patches for faster rollback? Yes, you can definitely do that. I usually don't do that. I have other backups, or I test that before I actually do that. So you can definitely clone the Oracle Home. In any case, you can rollback, obviously, but for faster rollback, if you actually create a new home, like out of place patching, this is probably the fastest rollback option. So if you want to be really sure, maybe use the out of place concept, and then create a new home and move the database there. And if it doesn't work, you just move the database back. Okay. Next question. Do you run the data patch on the rack node 1, or can you run that on any rack node? Any rack node, okay, anyone at all. So data patch, you need to run that only once. Anywhere is fine. But you have to run that only after all nodes were patched. That's important. Okay, deploy image to a new home, just copying the new binaries and patches, right? Not exactly. You can go to my blog post about that, and if you don't if you can't find that, just send me an email and I'll send you the link back. To deploy an image, deploy an image. Yeah, to create an image. Okay, so create an image, there is a process to create an image. But after you create an image, you basically get a zip file, you just unzip the file and that's it, and everything is there. 3 more questions, I hope I have time. Image copy should have the latest patches applied before copying it. Are you talking about gold image? If you talk about gold image, then yes, I would create a gold image with all the patches, RURs, OJVM, one-offs, whatever. Create everything inside and then create the image and then just apply it. Why we require locking and unlocking grid home during patching? Oh, that's a good question. I don't know exactly the answer. I would guess this is like an internal thing with the Oracle Grid to protect it, I would guess, so it won't change during runtime or something like that. I can point this question to the Oracle RUC product managers. What about Windows? Yeah, I didn't talk about Windows so much, but basically Windows it doesn't have the RU and the RURs. All the rest is the same. Okay, so Windows have the DB bundle patch, and then you just need to install that. And on top of that, you can install the OJVM and one-offs. Okay, so this is Windows. 2 more questions here. Please, can you turn back on node number with known issues? Yeah, sure, I can have that here while I answer the last question. Oh, where is that? A little bit more. There you go. Okay. So this is getting updated all the time with the latest RU and RUR, and then you have the known issues here, and the node number is at the bottom. Last question. Can you run data patch multiple times? Sometimes this happens. Yeah, there's no problem. I don't know. I think in very old versions they didn't allow that, but now it's not a problem. Okay, so if you need, when you run a data patch, it figures out what was installed and what not, and what the database contains and what not, and then what is installed in the home, and then it runs the patches of everything that is needed. So if you have a problem, you can run data patch multiple times. Yeah, and last question, can we have the slides? So yeah, you will have the slides. I will send them to Viscosity and the New York Oracle user group, and I guess they will forward that to you. So I guess that's it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Liron. Everyone that is in attendance today will definitely be receiving a copy of the slide deck as well as a recording of today's session. You'll be getting an email from me later this afternoon. Does anyone have any last questions before we conclude today's webinar? If not, well, thank you so much.
Actually, there is one here.
Oh, okay.
Are RUs and RURs cumulative? Yes, they are. So if you have 19.6 and you want to install 19.9, you don't have to install everything in between, just install 19.9.
Awesome.
Okay.
Alrighty,
Thank you very much.
Everyone, again, that you'll be receiving that email from me later this afternoon, and I'll also include a link to register for our next webinar on January 5th. If you enjoyed today's presentation, definitely check that out in the new year. And if there aren't any more questions, thank you everyone for attending today. It's always a pleasure. Thank you, Liron and Coleman and NYOUG for your partnership and for presenting today. You guys are amazing, and I hope everyone has a great holiday. We will see you all in January. Thanks again, guys.
Thank you, everybody.